All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Dr. Stone, Season 1, Episode 17. Going back to Earth.
We have now taken a look at the past via Ruri, telling the story to Senku.
Mm-hmm.
This is a story of Senku's father. This is just straight up his story at this point.
Mm-hmm.
We are now learning not only a lot about him as a character, but how he related to his son, how he had his dream to be an astronaut, and how much, in some ways, Senku is like and not like his father. So, pretty exciting.
One of the things that I really like about that is that in a lot of cases, by Senku helping his dad become an astronaut, he kind of has saved the human race.
Right.
In a lot of ways, you know?
Yeah.
So, that's cool.
We don't know the extent of what Ishigami Byakuya is going to be, doing.
Right, what the full story will be.
Right. But
where it ends.
Yeah, there's a very real possibility that the fact that there are any human tribes out there at all might be just because of that. It might have literally just been Senku waking up, if not for that. So, where would Kohaku have been if that was the case? So
that's a good question.
Yeah. So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone. Now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, and then come back here for the discussion.
Okay.
All right, that was one of the most emotional episodes of Dr. Stone we've seen thus far. Very much a beautiful episode.
Yep, fantastic. And we know what happened now. We know, more or less there's a bunch of, open, empty spaces, right? But we know the trajectory. We know how they got to here.
Yep, the 100 stories were created by his father. His father is not his biological father, but his adopted father, probably in a lot of ways, something that could be a theme moving forward with regards to, family that goes beyond blood. So there's something there. But the descendants of Byakuya, Shamil, Lillian, Dahlia, Yakov, and Connie, they're all out there now. That's the new,
that's the new world population, essentially, plus Tsukasa Empire. Yeah.
Right. And then those that, would have probably been potentially other Senkus, if any. Anyone that, luckily just popped out of the... But odds are that they popped out of the petrification in a way that they probably wouldn't have survived, and the time, and all that. So, so we've got this situation here. We got to meet these characters before they all passed away and died, and that's a really cool thing to do with your backstory premise and kind of just really lean into it. We only had a few minutes really to get to meet a lot of these characters.
Yep.
And then they're just dead.
They're gone.
Yeah, nature is punishing. It is not. It is not let up.
And it adds to the wonder of the fact that the Ishigami village is around.
Yes, today.
Currently, today, right?
That's because so nuts.
When they went from everyone, all the kids playing, back then, right? And then they cut to everyone having the party, and just how many people there were in the village, even though it might have only been like 50 or 60 people,
Right.
That's a big deal.
Is a very big deal.
That is a really big deal.
And the idea that there were outsiders that, probably were connected to the village at some point. So this village was larger at some point, too.
Right. Yep.
Crazy. And the other thing, the first story, we went back to double check this. The first story was Byakuya basically sending them on the path towards Japan.
Yep.
So over the course of 3,700 years, somewhere along those lines, they made it to Japan.
Yep.
And they probably believed that there was some spiritual reason that why this place was special. But let's think about this here. They started in South America, which our projections thinking that the thing originated in North America was wrong. But regardless of where they started in South America, it was somewhere on an island. The kids of Dahlia and Yakov grew up without their parents because of this island. one third of the remaining population of humanity had to basically, or I guess a quarter probably at the time, had to go and basically abandon their kids in order to try and save one of their number, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So they're just out there probably somewhere, either dead or, like you were saying, they had to restart, and they could never go back to the island because they
granted,
physically couldn't do it.
Now, granted, if you get off the island and you're still alive, that's actually one of the things that Yakov and Dahlia probably did die, because getting off the island, then you have the whole plethora of everything left behind by humanity that was there, so it probably would have been a lot easier to do something like get back to the island, and that's probably how they ended up getting to Japan. That's probably how they crossed the oceans and things like that, is because, as long as it wasn't like, multiple generations and stuff down the line, maybe it was something where it was like, okay, and then they were able to get some ocean liner or something, or some boat that could survive the journey that was still around.
I don't think they could make it to Japan in 100 years.
Oh, yeah?
No, I don't think so.
Because, there's that part of me that thinks that too, but then at the same time, if it went beyond 100 years, the fact that, it would be tough to get there at all.
Well, that's my point, is that...
I mean, regardless, it's tough, but...
In some ways, it had to be something that was the main story.
Yes.
Otherwise, there would have not been enough motivation to go to an island.
Yes.
Japan is an island. You can't, no, it's a set of islands, actually. You going there makes no sense from a survival standpoint. There's limited resources there. You're going to basically have to traverse points where you could just lose everyone.
Yep.
Yeah, it's dangerous. I know there's not as much of a land, not much of a water divide between certain areas of Japan and stuff like that, but just constructing a boat, or like you said, even if they ended up finding a boat that they could use. Yeah, I don't know. Because, again, another thing, Alaska is all tundra after a certain point. And also, they would have to go through Alaska at a point where it was summer so that they could actually make it through the harsh environments in a way that was reasonable. So there's so many things that, in terms of foraging and all this, that could have been gotten into the story, and yet they condensed it down to what was really important. The stories being created, the fact that they realized that they had to pass it on not only to the next generation, but they had to set up the dozens, hundreds of generations in the future to eventually have the opportunity to make this work. Right. What's also beautiful about this is so wonderful, is that in classic fashion, Senku is 100% believed in by his father. That was so good.
It is very much a it's something where you can see from the meta aspect of the story beats that are kind of being hit, right? Of the super gifted main character and all that stuff. But then, that, of course, it would only be logical to believe in Senku, because if anyone could fix this, it would be Senku.
But it's belief. It's not logical.
But it's belief, exactly. It's not logic, and that's
Yeah. I just love that the father, who is the one who doesn't have the actual kind of raw genius that Senku has, didn't pass it on because he gave him raw genius, but he used just his own humanity in specific instances to give him the opportunity to be able to think and survive. There's this ancient custom of sorts, the idea of passing things along down the line. It's one of the oldest kind of traditions of humanity, is that you pass along to your kids essentially what the most that you can.
That's how we've survived.
That's how we've survived. That's one of the most wonderful things, is the connection between children and parents, in that the parents then basically sacrifice everything so that they can have a little bit of a better way than they did in the future. And this is something that you compound that over the course of thousands of years. They're essentially the parents of humanity at this point. That's so beautiful. And I like that they almost kind of poked a little fun at the idea of the not related by blood thing, because that's the point, is that you could make it a distinction of, who is the descendants or what have you. No, they're all in some ways it's all because of them being up in space that it ended up being this way. And then it comes to the all is one is all thing from FMAB, where you could say, well, the only reason they went up there is because, like you were saying earlier, Senku helped his father, have the courage, the spunk, the gumption to keep trying to become an astronaut.
And there were probably tons of people that also helped each one of them go up there, right?
Yeah. And then humanity ended up getting to a place where we could go up to space at all.
Those kids on the street that Lillian would sing to as a kid.
Yeah.
That helped, encourage her to get to the point where she could pay the $50 million, for the ticket, in order to go up. Yeah.
They're a part of this.
Yep.
The scene where we saw the cemetery. What I think is really cool there is that Senku brings up the idea that like any of them are actually buried here. The idea that there's these symbols that human beings will build and construct for the purpose of establishing and grounding their beliefs in something. Now, it might not actually be real. The actual grounded portion might be something that is a symbol itself, a representation for the, well, of course it is, that's what it was building, but is a monument of sorts to the efforts of those that came before them.
Right.
Now, how many times do you think they did things like this? Think about the beginning of the story.
Oh, sure.
Where there's the 4 parents, essentially. Their burial mounds are right there, and the kids are playing in the full presence of this thing there with no adults. Like, that's them basically having it emblazoned into their minds that there were people that died and came before us, in some ways kind of like the petrified people.
Sure. Yeah.
They serve as living reminders that we owe something to the past, and we're going to build it, in the future. So there's so many symbols, I think, in this episode.
Yep. This is wonderful.
Wow.
And because what I was kind of expecting once they did the previous episode is that we were going to get maybe like a little more of a mini story kind of that it would go into with how things were back then and everything.
So more montagey,
or rather maybe less montagey, or I don't know,
like segmented mini stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Over the course of time.
Right. Like I expected that there would be more things that they would do than just getting down here and establishing a civilization, right? Like the how did this happen, things like that, or whatever. But the way they did this here, and the way it was tied back to Senku, like that was because the story of Senku's dad and everybody, that was really good. But when the connection point was made with where Senku and everybody is now, that's where I feel like it became like really powerful, like beyond just a good story about people and how they survived in the apocalypse, basically. And I don't know, I wasn't necessarily expecting that. I thought it would be a lot more segmented, of just sort of like, these are the things that we did, kind of a thing. This is what we've learned, maybe. But yeah,
interesting. Okay, yeah. Well, we got basically the genesis, if you will, of all the new beginnings for humanity. A lot of these characters specifically do seem to be the ones, though, that carry the lineage of sorts of the people in the village and what have you. And they definitely all seem to have like little traits here and there. They look like certain ones there. Like Shamil definitely looked like a younger, more soft Magma, if that makes sense. You had Lillian, who definitely looked like Ruri, but with a lot more physicality and confidence.
Sure.
And Kohaku as well. So you can definitely see that there's a very clear kind of direct connection with regards to the lineage there. So you can kind of assume a little bit about what would have the history been, because we have, in some ways, in our, not necessarily written history, but kind of our oral history of humanity, what the nomadic kind of peoples of humanity were like before they formed civilizations. They would essentially be roving, groups, basically just going foraging, cycle seasons and what have you. but very few of them had specific goals in mind, I would assume, of like, here's where we're going, here's why we're doing this thing. So you can consume a little bit more expediency and a little bit more urgency and a little bit more unity, maybe, with regards to that. So humanity has a lot of advantages going around the second time here. And I think that's kind of the point that thematically in the story I feel like is really beautiful here is, you know, you're bringing up the idea of just the people even watching Lillian perform. Their souls echo forth in the current presence of humanity. That's so true. And that's something that is important, that is carried forth in the things like Chrome being interested in rocks just because of the story that, you know, Senku's father specifically set up so that there would be a potential scientist, a geologist of sorts.
Someone that could make sense a little bit of what was out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if they had no idea what it was, they could start using their brain and their creative critical thinking to start understanding why certain things do X, Y, Z. And that's so wonderful because then we can look at all these characters and you can kind of look at them and go, okay, you know, Kohaku is the gorilla, right? Like, she has the physicality and the maxed out stats with regards to, you know, speed and agility to be a really badass hunter. But then you think about all the people that lived and died and their stories, their efforts to carry on the story brought them to this point here. And then this all converged with Senku just happening to wake up at this specific time. But there was probably a time where these people were in Japan. They did it. And now they're like, what else do we do?
Right. I guess that these are the stories of our history now, you know.
Right.
Like,
we just kind of settle here. And we just slowly but surely grow, expand, and do as humans do. But imagine like the feeling it would be if that piece of the past basically came to you and you're just like, oh my God, like, this is a walking, living piece of something that built the foundations of who we are as a people.
Right.
That's incredible. It's just so cool. It makes the whole beginning part of this show so much more impactful because then you see all these moments where Senku is overcoming little kind of struggles and steps as basically just stepping stones along the way that other people had the advantage of community, had the advantage of a story that came before them to push them along towards these things. And Senku, this is just who he is. So it's really cool. It's really special.
Good stuff.
But
now Tsukasa's on his way.
Tsukasa's on his way. So I have to assume Asagiri again didn't want this to happen. If anything, Tsukasa's just smart enough to realize that something's up, or at the very least that it's time for him to expand. Because I'm guessing Asagiri again wouldn't have been able to completely hide the fact that there are just other people here, you know?
Right. He's somewhere that's not with the Tsukasa Empire.
Right.
For, you know, great periods of time. What's going on.
Right. Even if, you know, Tsukasa still thinks Senku is dead.
Right. Yes. Right. And that could be a fun surprise.
That could be a fun surprise, is that Tsukasa is expecting basically, oh, good, I can basically move bases here with however many people that he's helped unpetrify.
Hopefully not too many.
Yeah, we might be getting a Pillarmen kind of situation here where it's going to be a bunch of young, like, college age, like, guys and girls that are, like, ridiculously strong.
I'm hoping it's, like, a few dozen, maybe. Like,
but,
no more
it
than
could
that.
be a lot, though.
Well, even a few dozen. Let's
even
be real here.
Even if it's just a dozen.
Yeah, even if it's just a dozen. With, one, just Tsukasa alone might be able to take out this whole village by himself. Two, if he's picking and choosing the most physical, able-bodied, you know, whatever, the best ones for being fighters and whatnot, compared to who we have in the village, like,
you kind of are basically gonna say, hey, Magma, we need you to actually be a boss here because you're the strongest.
And hope he doesn't just join the Tsukasa Empire.
Hopefully he's dumb enough to not think that kind of way, where he's basically just like, oh.
Or maybe they can even win him over with the appeals of science and whatnot. It's like, hey, you've had much better food than you'll have with the Tsukasa Empire. Like, let's be real,
Yeah, like, actually, let's think about this here. We've got, this is episode 17.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, okay, we've got a lot of episodes that we can get into here if we wanted to make this be a bigger deal than just like a 2 or 3 episode thing, which I assume it will be. It's going to take them time to get here.
Yes, they'll have to prepare as much as they can, which probably won't be too much, but...
Right, but like you said, what kind of strategy would you use here? Well, first off, you'd basically say, Asagiri, again, I need you to basically continue to be a scout or a spy and relay false information back to them of like, oh, I just went over there and they're very eager to meet more humans or something,
What they need is, they need slingshots with little glass balls full of... okay, theoretically.
Jesus.
No. So
Jacob's been like thinking about this since the tournament arc. How can we use hydrochloric acid?
No. They said the chlorosulfuric acid. No, but like because theoretically, okay, they're gonna have a bunch of people that could kill them easily, and they will slaughter them all.
Right, but I don't think they necessarily would kill them. I think if anything, this is where the first
conquer.
It's literally going to be the you
can join the Tsukasa harem,
you can join our slavery group. Like they're probably going to if they win, enslave them and then probably kill off, those that are just too problematic, like Senku. So do you think there's a possibility for diplomacy?
Not with Tsukasa, potentially with some of the other people within his group.
Oh, even though we haven't met them yet?
Yeah, we haven't met them. So, so I'm not saying it's good odds, right? but that is something...
It's a 1 in 10 chance, basically.
Right, but that is something that could potentially be brought up, given that there are a lot of comforts that they have because of science that the Tsukasa Empire would not be used to.
So they just, set ramen, burn the bridge, and they're basically just like, yeah, we're holed up here.
Right.
Would you like to have more ramen? And they're like, and then even Tsukasa might even be like, this is good.
This is actually pretty good.
But it's not like real ramen. And
yeah. I mean, granted, that actually is true. Damn it, that might not be as effective because these would be people that are unpetrified, so they remember what the real thing is like.
Right.
Oh, curses.
See, I think that's the thing I need to bring up here is that the people who are here in the village have the benefit of all this history bringing them to this point.
Mm-hmm.
They have hundreds, if not thousands, or maybe tens of thousands of people's lives behind them, carrying them to this point.
Yeah.
Probably not tens of thousands, but a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that means something. That means so much.
Yes.
But if Tsukasa is going at this from the standpoint of these are all people that are going to have the intellect, the kind of the accepted knowledge of the modern age in their mind, there's not some amnesia problem by being, unpetrified,
Yeah. If anything,
Yuzuriha and
oh man,
Taiju didn't have any issues like that.
Well, and even then, one of the issues here, because okay, let's say Tsukasa wasn't able to get people that were actually experienced because of being in the modern age. Even if they're physically capable, they might not have experience being warriors, say. But Tsukasa does, so he just teaches. So he just teach them, right?
Right. Tsukasa is not dumb.
Right, exactly.
He's going to make his people stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
It has been a while. So I would assume we're getting around 12 to 24 people, maybe in his crew. That's my guess in terms of numbers there.
Any more than 24 and the village is just screwed.
Yeah.
Like unless Senku starts doing some pretty barbaric scientific weapons things.
Well, that's why I think in some ways we need to think about what Senku is capable of.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the one that I think is maybe the most fascinating. What if they just left Japan? Because now they know the story. And it's like, hey, Tsukasa, cool. Have fun trying to cross a sea. You'll just come here and we'll be gone.
That's very true, because one of the other things that I was thinking...
What if, like...
Yeah, and here's the other thing. Senku knows how to unpetrify people. Now, it requires some materials that that he can't just make on his own, right?
He has to go on the hunt for it.
Right, he has to go on the hunt for it. But, theoretically, he's got a big noggin. If they were in a place where they were far away from Tsukasa, and there were some good natural barriers that kept them from being able to go
like a big sea of water.
Like a big sea of water. Then, theoretically, he could eventually find it, and then they could grow the village much, much faster by unpetrifying people.
Right.
But in their current situation, that won't really help them. So that's more just if they get away.
Right. So I almost think that Senku is, going to tap into some Joseph Joestar things and realize, I'll say it again, they have how many? He's like going to say they have 15. It's like, what is your assessment? They're going to kick your ass. It's like, okay.
Oh, and they keep 3 stationed by the harvesting area for the revival.
Oh, sure, that's a good point. So we can't do any subterfuge stuff,
right? Because one of the things that we could theoretically really get into here is the idea of like outmaneuvering and tactics and things like that. Because Senku is way better than that. Better than Tsukasa at that. So, but there's not too much that they can do. So
So I'll just have to see. But here we go, y'all. We've learned the past. We had a really great moment with Senku kind of acknowledging what's happened and thanking his father for this. This is just it's so good.
I'm really glad that Senku cried. Because sometimes like he can be so badass that I want to see that part of him where he's weak, you know. And that was awesome, even though he was like, no, go away, I'm gonna go look around here.
I was like, sure you are. I know what this is about.
And also we got a lot of awesome tracks this episode.
Oh my god, the music,
like a lot. Like that was fantastic.
So one of the best episodes of the show thus far. So good. Thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access. So you can chat with us and the community there about this show, about anime in general, and you can also talk with Jacob about the sci-fi novel that he wrote.
That's right. Wrote a sci-fi novel. It's called Battle Lines. It's super awesome, and it's on Amazon. Link in the description down below. Go check it out.
So if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.